Maya Chun had once been the most respected wildlife rehabilitation specialist in the Pacific Northwest. Her rehabilitation center housed everything from injured hawks to orphaned bear cubs, and her success rate was legendary. But that was before the incident with the wolf. Before she chose an animal's life over human authority and lost everything. The wolf had been brought to her facility after attacking a poacher who'd been illegally hunting on protected land. Authorities wanted it euthanized immediately, but Maya saw something different in its golden eyes. This wasn't a monster. It was a mother protecting her territory, driven to desperation by human encroachment. When Maya refused the euthanization order, citing the wolf's pregnant condition, the Wildlife Department revoked her license and blacklisted her from every legitimate facility in the region. Now, 3 months later, Maya pushed a mop across the concrete floors of Inferno's Edge, an underground fighting arena hidden beneath a legitimate boxing gym in Portland's industrial district. The stench of sweat, blood, and something far worse filled the air as she worked the night shift, invisible to the wealthy spectators who came to watch the brutal matches. But these weren't ordinary fights. Maya had quickly learned that the combatants weren't entirely human or entirely animal. Massive wolves with intelligence burning in their eyes, bears that moved with unnatural coordination, and stranger creatures that defied classification were forced to battle for the entertainment of the city's elite. Each beast wore a thick metal collar that pulsed with an eerie blue light, and when their handlers spoke commands, the creatures obeyed with mechanical precision. Viktor Kozlov, the Russian crime lord who ran the operation, took pride in his collection. He'd acquired his creatures through a network of black market dealers who specialized in what they called enhanced specimens, beings that existed in the gray area between human and animal consciousness. The magical collars, imported from sources Victor never discussed, could override the creature's natural instincts and force absolute obedience. Maya kept her head down and her observations to herself, but every night brought fresh horror. She watched magnificent creatures tear each other apart, not from natural aggression, but from magical compulsion. The worst part was seeing the awareness in their eyes, the knowledge that they were being controlled, used, destroyed piece by piece. Her cover as a simple janitor was perfect. The security guards saw her as just another invisible service worker, and the spectators looked through her completely. She could move through the facility freely, collecting information and documenting the abuse she witnessed. Maya had contacted several animal rights organizations, but without concrete evidence and legitimate law enforcement backing, her reports went nowhere. The breaking point came when Victor's men brought in their newest acquisition, a creature unlike anything Maya had ever seen. It stood nearly 7 feet tall when upright, with a powerful humanoid frame covered in dark fur that seemed to absorb light. Its face was a disturbing blend of human and wolf features, with intelligent dark eyes that held depths of pain Maya could barely comprehend. Massive scars crisscrossed its body, evidence of previous battles or worse tortures. Unlike the other creatures, this one couldn't be controlled. It had been fitted with 3 collars instead of 1, their blue light pulsing frantically as they struggled against some internal resistance. The beast, for that's what Victor called it, hadn't eaten in weeks, attacking anyone who came near its cage with desperate ferocity. Maya watched from the shadows as Victor's trainers attempted to break the creature using increasingly violent methods. They used cattle prods, fire, and magical compulsions that made the other beasts whimper in sympathy. But nothing worked. The creature's defiance only seemed to grow stronger, its eyes blazing with an unbreakable will that both terrified and inspired Maya. She knew she couldn't stay silent much longer. Every night, she went home to her small apartment and stared at the ceiling, thinking about the wolf she'd tried to save, the one that had eventually died in captivity after being separated from her cubs. She'd failed then by working within a system that valued human comfort over animal welfare. She wouldn't fail again. The decision that would change everything was already forming in her mind. Maya had been documenting the abuse for 2 weeks when she witnessed something that shattered her remaining restraint. During a late-night training session, she watched Victor's head trainer, a sadistic man named Dmitri, use a new form of torture on the resistant creature. He'd brought in a smaller beast, a young wolf hybrid that couldn't have been more than adolescent, and forced it to attack the larger creature through collar compulsion. The scarred beast could have easily killed the smaller one, but instead, it took every blow without retaliating, its eyes never leaving the young wolf's face. Maya realized with horror that the creature was protecting its attacker, recognizing that the violence wasn't the wolf's choice. When the session ended, the beast curled itself around the injured smaller creature, sharing its body heat and offering. What comfort it could dot in that moment. Maya saw something in the creature's behavior that the others had missed, a distinctly human capacity for sacrifice and compassion. Her scientific training kicked in, and she began to notice other tells. The way it sometimes tried to speak, producing sounds that were almost words. How it would trace patterns in the dirt that resembled letters. Its recognition of human emotions, and ability to respond appropriately. The next morning, Maya made a decision that would expose everything. She approached Carlos Rivera, a young security guard who'd shown discomfort during the training sessions. Carlos was working his way through veterinary school and had taken the job out of financial desperation, not knowing what he was getting into. "I need to show you something," Maya said, pulling Carlos aside during his break. She showed him the photos she'd taken, the behavioral notes she'd compiled, and her analysis of the creature's conditions. "These aren't just animals, Carlos. Some of them are people, our people. They've been changed, tortured, broken down till they can't remember who they were." Carlos stared at the evidence with growing horror. "Are you sure? I mean, some of these creatures, they're so violent." "Violence born from trauma," Maya explained. "Look at their eyes during the fights. They're not aggressive, they're terrified. The collars force them to attack, but you can see them fighting the compulsion, especially the new one. They developed a plan. Carlos would create a distraction during the next evening's fights, drawing the guards away from the creature pens. Maya would use her universal key card A, perk of her custodial position, to access the restricted areas and gather definitive proof of the operation's scope. But their plan went wrong from the start. Victor had been suspicious of Carlos's recent nervousness and had ordered increased surveillance. When Maya slipped into the creature holding area, she found herself face to face with Dmitri and 2 armed guards. "Dr. Maya Chun," Dmitri said, his accent thick with mockery. "Yes, we know who you are. A disgraced veterinarian who values animal life over human authority. Victor has been expecting you to cause problems." Maya's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "Those creatures are suffering. What you're doing here is torture." "What we're doing here is entertainment," Dmitri replied. "Very profitable entertainment. And you, Dr. Chun, are going to help us provide a special show for tonight's audience." The guards grabbed Maya's arms, but she wrenched free, her voice rising in anger. "You're monsters. That creature in there, it's a person. They're all people, transformed and tortured until they can't remember their humanity." Her outburst echoed through the facility, reaching the ears of Victor himself as he prepared for the evening's matches. The crime lord appeared in the doorway, his expensive suit contrasting sharply with the brutal surroundings. "Dr. Chun," Victor said smoothly, "you have such compassion for my collection. Perhaps you'd like to meet my newest acquisition up close?" Maya's blood ran cold as she realized what he was suggesting. "You can't be serious." "Oh, but I am. Ladies and gentlemen always enjoy a good execution. especially when it involves poetic justice. The beast hasn't eaten in weeks. It's quite ravenous. And you, my dear veterinarian, will discover firsthand whether your theories about animal nature are correct. As the guards dragged Maya toward the main arena, she could hear Victor speaking into his radio, announcing a special exhibition to the evening's crowd. The beast was already being moved into the pit, its 3 collars pulsing with increased intensity as the handlers prepared for the show. Maya's mind raced, searching for any possible escape. But as she was pushed toward the arena entrance, she realized there might be only one way out, and it would require her to bet everything on her belief in the creature's hidden humanity. Asterisk. The arena erupted in excited chatter as Victor's announcement crackled through the speakers. Maya found herself in a holding cell adjacent to the main pit, watching through reinforced glass as the scarred creature was prodded into the arena by handlers with electric prods. The beast's 3 collars blazed with blue light, their magical compulsion so intense that sparks occasionally arced between them. Ladies and gentlemen, Victor's voice boomed through the sound system. Tonight we have a special treat. A supposed animal expert who believes our specimens are more than mere beasts. Let's see if her theories hold up under ... pressure. The crowd's bloodthirsty cheers made Naya's stomach turn. She could see the wealthy spectators in their luxury boxes, drinking champagne while anticipating her death. But her attention was focused on the creature in the pit below. Up close, its transformation was even more heartbreaking. The beast paced the arena's perimeter with desperate energy, its claws scraping against the concrete walls. But Maya noticed something the crowd couldn't see. The creature wasn't searching for weakness in the barriers. It was avoiding the center of the arena, where the lights were brightest and the crowd's attention was focused. It was trying to hide. Dr. Sarah Kim, Victor's in-house veterinarian, appeared at the cell door with a clipboard. Maya had met her once before, a brilliant woman who'd fallen into Victor's employ after losing her medical license for experimental procedures on humans. "I'm sorry about this, Maya," Dr. Kim said quietly. "Victor ordered me to increase the creature's aggression stimulants, but I gave it sedatives instead. It won't help much, but it might buy you a few seconds." Maya gripped the woman's arm. "Sarah, you know what these creatures really are. Help me prove it." "I can't," Dr. Kim replied, her voice breaking. "I have a daughter." Victor made it very clear what would happen if I disobeyed. The cell door opened, and guards shoved Maya toward the arena entrance. As she walked through the tunnel, she could hear the creature's breathing harsh, labored, punctuated by sounds that were almost sobs. The beast was in pain, not just physical but emotional. It was grieving. Maya emerged into the arena to deafening noise. The crowd was on its feet, some chanting for blood, others placing bets on how long she'd survive. Victor stood in his private box, microphone in hand, orchestrating the spectacle. "Release the beast," he commanded. The handlers deactivated the containment field, and the creature immediately focused on Maya, its eyes those disturbingly human. Eyes locked onto hers with an expression she couldn't quite read. The collars pulsed more intensely, and the beast began to advance, its movements becoming more predatory with each step. But Maya had spent her entire career reading animal behavior, and something was wrong with this picture. The creature's body language was aggressive, but its eyes were pleading. It was fighting the compulsion, using every ounce of will to resist the magical commands, forcing it to attack. "I know you're in there," Maya said softly, taking a step backward not from fear, but to give the creature space to think. "I know you're fighting this." The beast lunged forward, claws extended, but at the last second it veered to the side, its attack missing Maya by inches. The crowd roared, thinking it was playing with its prey, but Maya saw the truth. The creature was warning her, trying to communicate the danger they both faced. Victor's voice crackled through the arena speakers. "Kill her. I command you to kill her." The collars flared brighter, and the creature's face contorted in agony. It was being forced to attack against its will, the magical compulsion overriding its desperate attempts at resistance. Maya watched in horror as the beast's movements became more mechanical, more puppet-like. This time, when it lunged, there was no hesitation. Maya rolled aside, the creature's claws raking across the concrete where she'd been standing. But as it prepared for another attack, Maya made a decision that would either save them both or get her killed. She stopped running. Instead, Maya sat down in the center of the arena, crossing her legs and placing her hands in her lap. The gesture was so unexpected that even the crowd fell silent for a moment. The creature skidded to a halt, clearly confused by this passive response. "I won't fight you," Maya said, her voice carrying across the arena. "I know this isn't who you are." The beast circled her, its movements becoming more frantic as the collars demanded aggression, but found no corresponding threat to justify it. Maya remained perfectly still, maintaining eye contact and speaking in the same calm tone she'd used with traumatized animals throughout her career. "You're scared," she continued. "You're in pain, but you're not a monster. I can see the person you used to be, fighting to break free." The creature stopped circling and stood directly in front of her, towering over her seated form. Its breathing was labored, and Maya could see the internal war being waged behind its eyes. The collars were demanding that it kill her, but every instinct it had left was screaming against it in that moment. Maya reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out the only thing she had, half of a peanut butter sandwich she'd brought for her break. It was a small gesture, almost absurd in the circumstances, but it was all she could offer. "You must be hungry," she said gently, extending the sandwich. "When did you last eat something because you wanted to, not because you were forced to?" The creature's eyes widened, and for a moment the arena faded away. Here was someone offering food not as a tool of control, but as a gift of compassion. The beast's claws retracted, and it slowly, carefully, took the sandwich from Maya's hand. That simple act of kindness shattered something in the creature's mind, not its will, but the barriers that had been built around its memories. As it ate, tears began to flow down its scarred face, and it sank to its knees before Maya. The crowd was in chaos. Victor was screaming orders, and the handlers were frantically trying to increase the collar's power. But none of it mattered. The creature curled up at Maya's feet, finally able to rest after months of forced violence. And in that moment of peace, it began to remember who it used to be. The arena had descended into chaos. Victor's screams echoed through the speakers as he demanded his security team intervene, but the handlers were too shocked to move. The creature, this supposedly mindless killing machine, had not only refused to harm Maya, but was now protecting her, positioning its massive body between her and the arena's exits. Maya kept her hand on the beast's head, feeling the tension slowly leave its muscles as it experienced something it had almost forgotten: voluntary touch. The creature's breathing had shifted from the harsh panting of forced aggression to something more rhythmic, more human. But the most remarkable change was in its eyes. Awareness was returning layer by layer, like someone waking from a nightmare. "Stay with me," Maya whispered. "Remember who you are." The creature's lips moved, producing sounds that were almost words. Maya. The voice was rough, distorted by the physical changes to its throat, but unmistakably human in its inflection. I remember you." Maya's heart stopped. "You remember me? From where?" The wolf. The pregnant wolf. "You saved her cubs after." The creature's voice broke, and more tears flowed. "After they killed her, you fought for her. You lost everything." The memory hit Maya like a physical blow. 6 months ago, after the wolf had been euthanized despite her protests. She'd been contacted by a mysterious benefactor who'd offered to fund a private sanctuary for the wolf's cubs. The man had been tall, gentle-voiced, with kind eyes and a passion for wildlife conservation that matched her own. David? She breathed. David Ashford? The creature nodded, and Maya saw the human features more clearly now beneath the bestial transformation. David Ashford had been a wildlife biologist, heir to a conservation fortune, who disappeared 4 months ago while investigating illegal animal trafficking in the Pacific Northwest. The authorities had assumed he'd been killed by poachers. But the truth was far worse. They took me, David continued, his voice growing stronger as more memories surfaced. I was getting close to exposing their operation. Victor's people captured me, brought me to a facility outside the city. They had a scientist, someone who specialized in changing people, making them into weapons. The transformation process had been gradual and agonizing. Using a combination of experimental drugs, surgical procedures, and the same magical technology that powered the control collars, Victor's scientists had slowly stripped away David's humanity. His body had been altered, his mind fragmented, his memories suppressed until only basic instincts remained. "But I never forgot you," David said, looking up at Maya with eyes that were fully human now, despite their changed shape. "Your kindness to that wolf, your willingness to sacrifice everything for a creature that couldn't defend itself. That memory kept me anchored, kept some part of me alive through all the torture." Victor's voice boomed through the arena. "Enough! Dmitri, activate the emergency protocols." The head trainer appeared at the arena's edge, holding a device that looked like a larger version of the creature's collars. "This will override all safeguards," he called to Victor. "The creature won't survive the neural feedback." "Do it," Victor snarled. "I'd rather lose my investment than my authority." Maya felt David tense beneath her hand as the device activated. The 3 collars around his neck flared with blinding light, and he screamed, a sound that was purely human in its anguish. The magical compulsion was being amplified beyond all safe limits, trying to force his transformed mind back into mindless compliance. "Fight it," Maya urged, gripping his hand as his body convulsed. "You're stronger than their magic. You're human, David. You're human." But the device was too powerful. Maya watched in horror as the awareness began to fade from David's eyes, replaced by the vacant stare of a controlled animal. The other creatures in the facility were howling in sympathy, their own collars resonating with the overwhelming magical energy. That's when Carlos Rivera appeared at the arena's edge, no longer dressed as a security guard, but wearing the tactical gear of a federal agent. Portland PD. Everyone on the ground. The lights went out, replaced by red emergency lighting, as Carlos and a team of real officers stormed the facility. In the confusion, Maya heard the distinctive sound of shattering glass. Someone had thrown a rock through the device controlling. David's collars. Dr. Sarah Kim stood in the medical bay doorway, her face pale but determined. "I called them," she sighed, her voice carrying across the arena. "I gave them everything: files, videos, evidence of what Victor's been doing. My daughter deserves to grow up in a world where this doesn't happen." The magical compulsion released its hold on David so suddenly that he collapsed, his body shaking with the aftermath of the neural assault. But his eyes, when they opened, were still human. The transformation hadn't been reversed. That would take time, specialized treatment, and possibly surgery, but his mind was free. Maya helped him sit up as federal agents secured the facility. "It's over," she said softly. "You're free." David looked around at the chaos, at the other creatures being carefully approached by animal control specialists who actually understood what they were dealing with. What about the others? "Some of them have been like this for years. They might not remember who they were." Then we help them remember, Maya replied. We help them heal, all of them. Victor was dragged away in handcuffs, still screaming threats and denials. But his empire was crumbling, his collection being liberated one creature at a time. The healing process would be long and difficult, but for the first time in months, there was hope. As the medical team carefully removed David's collars, Maya realized that their ordeal had accomplished something neither of them could have managed alone. They'd proven that compassion could overcome even the most sophisticated forms of control, that the human spirit could survive even the most dehumanizing torture. The real work was just beginning. 3 months after the raid, on Inferno's edge, Maya stood in the morning sunlight outside the Pacific Northwest Rehabilitation Center, a facility that bore her name but had been funded by an anonymous benefactor. The building had been designed specifically for beings who existed in the gray area between human and animal consciousness, equipped with medical facilities, therapy rooms, and spaces that could accommodate both human and creature needs. David emerged from the main building, his transformation still evident, but softened by months of proper care. The surgical team had been able to reverse some of the physical changes, but others would be permanent. He walked upright now, his face more human than wolf, but his hands still ended in claws, and his eyes retained their golden color. More importantly, his mind was fully restored. "Morning report," he said, handing Maya a tablet. Thomas remembered his daughter's name yesterday. Rebecca actually spoke full sentences, not just fragments. And Marcus figured out how to use the art therapy supplies. Maya smiled, scanning the progress notes. Each small victory represented months of patient work, helping the transformed beings reclaim their humanity, piece by piece. Some recoveries were faster than others, but every individual was making progress. "What about the new arrivals?" Maya asked. The 2 from the Seattle ring are settling in well. They're still mostly nonverbal, but they're eating regularly and showing interest. In the other residents, I think they're beginning to feel safe. The federal investigation had uncovered a network of similar facilities across the country, all connected to various criminal organizations that had discovered the profitability of transformed beings. Each rescue operation brought new residents to Maya's facility, each carrying their own trauma and their own path to healing. Dr. Sarah Kim appeared in the doorway, her medical coat pristine despite the early hour. She'd become the facility's chief medical officer after her testimony had helped convict Victor and his associates. Her expertise in the transformation process had proven invaluable in developing reversal treatments. "Maya, we need to discuss the Peterson case," she said, joining them on the porch. "The transformation is more advanced than anything we've seen before. The neural pathways are almost completely restructured." Maya nodded. James Peterson had been rescued from a facility in California, where he'd been held for over 2 years. The transformation process had been so thorough that he showed no signs of human memory or behavior. But Maya had learned not to give up hope. Schedule him for intensive therapy with David, she decided. If anyone can reach him, it's someone who's been through the same experience. David had proven to be remarkably effective at helping other transformed beings. His combination of lived experience and recovered humanity created a unique bridge between the 2 states of being. He'd developed techniques for accessing buried memories and helping others fight through the psychological barriers that the transformation process created. Carlos Rivera pulled up in his unmarked car, now serving as the Federal Task Force's liaison to the Rehabilitation Center. He'd been promoted after his role in exposing the trafficking network, and his veterinary training had made him invaluable in understanding the medical aspects of the transformations. "Good news," he said, getting out of the car. The judge approved the Peterson family's visitation request. "They'll be here this afternoon." Maya felt a familiar mix of hope and anxiety. Family visits were crucial for recovery, but they were also emotionally charged events. Sometimes the recognition was immediate and healing. Other times, the transformed individual showed no recognition at all, devastating the families and potentially setting back recovery. "I'll prepare David to facilitate the meeting," Maya said. "And Sarah, can you have the medical team standing by? These reunions can be intense." As the day progressed, Maya found herself reflecting on how much had changed since that night in the arena. The facility was thriving, with funding from multiple sources, including the David Ashford Foundation, which had been established to support transformation recovery research. Public awareness of the trafficking networks had led to stronger legislation and better law enforcement training, but the most significant change was in herself. Maya had discovered that her true calling wasn't just animal rehabilitation. It was helping beings of all kinds reclaim their dignity and identity after trauma. The work was harder than anything she'd done before, but it was also more meaningful. The afternoon brought the Peterson family, a wife, 2 teenage children, and elderly parents who'd never stopped hoping for James's return. Maya watched from the observation room as David carefully introduced them to their transformed family member, explaining what to expect and how to communicate. At first, James showed no recognition. He cowered in the corner of the meeting room, his wolf-like features twisted with fear and confusion. But then his daughter began to sing a lullaby that she said he'd sung to her when she was small. The change was immediate and profound. James's posture shifted, his eyes focused, and he began to hum along with the melody. It was a small moment, but it represented everything Maya had learned about the power of love and patience over force and control. As the sun set over the rehabilitation center, Maya stood with David on the observation deck, watching the residents. In the courtyard below, some were reading, others working in the garden, a few playing adapted games that accommodated their physical changes. They looked like what they were, people healing from trauma, supported by others who understood their journey. "Do you ever regret it?" David asked quietly. "Everything you lost to get here?" Maya considered the question. She'd lost her original career, her reputation, her comfortable life. But she'd gained something far more valuable, the knowledge that authentic compassion could overcome any form of control or manipulation. She'd learned that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't magic or technology, but the simple human capacity to see another being's suffering and choose to help. "No," she said finally. "I think this is where I was always meant to be." In the distance, she could hear the sound of laughter. James Peterson playing with his grandchildren, his wife holding his transformed hand without flinching, his family whole again despite the changes. It was the sound of healing, of hope, of humanity at its very best. The beast had curled up at her feet, not because she'd commanded it, but because she'd shown it kindness when no one else would. That simple act had started a chain reaction that was still spreading, changing lives and challenging assumptions about what it meant to be human.